Tonight, a Liberty, Missouri massage therapist is facing a felony charge after a client told police he was sexually assaulted during an appointment. Investigators say 56-year-old Tong Fu is charged in Clay County with second-degree sodomy. Police say the incident happened April 24th at Mady Massage in Liberty. The client told officers he went in for a massage for back pain. According to the probable cause statement, he said Fu pulled down his pants, left him exposed, and grabbed his genitals. The client told police that he immediately got up and left. Fu was later arrested. Now, this isn't the first case like this in our area. We recently saw a similar situation happen to 5 women in Baldwin City. KCTV5 investigative reporter Samantha Boring joins us now in the newsroom. And Samantha, you spoke with an attorney about these types of cases. What was his reaction to this?
Sharon, that attorney I spoke with says cases like this can be traumatic. And one of the biggest takeaways, he says, is that people should know what to look for before an appointment and what to do if something goes wrong. He told me he's represented 13 people in the Kansas City area since 2023 who say they were sexually assaulted during a massage therapy appointment. He says that does not necessarily mean these cases are happening more often. It may mean more people feel able to report them. He says there are steps customers can take before booking. In Missouri, you can check online whether a massage therapist is licensed. He also recommends reading reviews carefully and paying attention to any red flags about a business. And if something does happen, he says people should know they do not have to process it all immediately. Call police and make a report, and consider filing a complaint with the state licensing board or speaking with an attorney about next steps.
I think everybody needs to have the understanding that it takes a while for somebody to process what happened and to come forward. There's support that can be had. There is a way through the Missouri licensing board to make a complaint against both the massage therapist, if they're licensed, and the actual business in these instances.
Shoemate says people in these situations should know they are not alone and that help is available. As for this case in Liberty, court records show Fu is due back in court May 28th. Live in the newsroom, Samantha Boring, KCTV5 Investigates.